Namaste everyone, and welcome back. This will be our last discussion for this series. Hopefully, we will meet again, as many of you are expecting, asking for it. So, last class we have spent our most of the time understanding about the idea of mind, and from the yogic point of view, how this word mind is understood. Chitta, buddhi, ego, mind. So these various terms and all together is called antakaran or internal instrument. There are various concepts that we discussed in the last class. Now, we also discussed about the practice and non-attachment. And taking our discussion forward from here, this idea of non-attachment, as we were talking in the last class, that this non-attachment is achieved through a process, and that process is by seeing things into the full spectrum. When we see something, we see parts, not the whole spectrum of the reality. And whatever the part we can see, we have an attachment to that, and we say this is the only thing that is correct. The Vairagya is also like a big spectrum, and when we try to understand that, we might stick to one part of it and considering it is everything. So this Vairagya, or the non-attachment or dispassion, is a ultimate practice, because from the Sankhya point of view, we can reach to our highest possibility when the Prakriti or the Sattva, Raja and Tamo gunas are established back into the equilibrium. Means that will be the highest degree of Vairagya that is mentioned in the Yoga Sutra. Tatparam Purush Khatir Gunavetrashnayam. That ultimate or the highest degree of non-attachment will be only possible when the gunas, the sattva, raja and tamo gunas are established back into the equilibrium. It means that before we reach to that stage, there can be many other stages of Vairagya also. And in those stages, also still it is Vairagya. But what Patanjali is asking us, what kind of ultimate Vairagya, it will only happen when all the gunas has stopped functioning. When the balance of the gunas is restored, means there is no creation further, that is the highest degree of Vairagya. But before we reach there, what are the milestones that we can touch upon in order to make this Vairagya, non-attachment, established in ourselves? There are many terms for that. One of the things that seems to be quite close in English is indifference. Indifference is in some way it's a negative connotation in some of the languages. The indifferent means that you are aloof, or you are somewhere dead. You may be like a insensitive person. Here, insensitivity or indifference is different things. Usually, when we try to understand Vairagya or the non-attachment, we will have many parallel words to it that they describe the meaning of Vairagya in a quite non-yogic way. Some of the meanings of Vairagya are like, one is insensitive. That if you are developing non-attachment, it means you are not sensitive person. Or if you are having Vairagya, means you are non-caring. If we see the parallel words, you may be if you are non-attached, then you may be emotionless. If you are non-attached, then you may be also considered as a selfish person. Maybe you may be selfish according to a lot of people if you are non-attached. You can be like very cold-blooded. They say cold-blooded, that this person has no emotions, emotionless, cold-blooded. Or maybe indifferent. So these all the words are somehow describing the meaning of non-attachment. In the last class, we discussed that the highest, the practice of non-attachment means that if we can give the right value to that moment, what I'm supposed to do, or to any object, to any person, not exaggerating it, not condemning it, both situations, if we can be somewhere in the middle of it, that you don't condemn something, for example, money. If I am non-attached to money, what does that mean? Do I condemn money? Not really. Do I exaggerate the meaning of having money, that I am no one without money? No. So in both ways, this extreme behavior that people have about non-attachment, you may be practicing saying I am non-attached, but if you are behaving in this extremist way, then it is not non-attachment. So, and if we look at the meaning of being non-attached, and then if we look into these in this world that we live, and then some people may object that if I am non-attached, then how can I function in the world? Because my attachment is that way through which I can create things, I can continue to excel in the material world or whatever. So the meaning of all these words that we have just seen need to be understood in this way, that all these meanings, if you are sensitive and in a way you are overwhelming or you are extremely attached to something, then do you really can grow? When we ask these questions and look at that non-attachment, it will make a lot of sense to us. For example, one meaning we said that if you are non-attached, the negative meaning associated is you are insensitive. Is it really possible for someone who is highly sensitive, actually that person will become non-attached only? Only highly sensitive persons has the capacity to become non-attached. If we see it in the practical sense into our lives, if I am sensitive, then only I will be able to expand my awareness and I will remain non-attached. Look at the examples of the people who has reached to that height of non-attachment. Actually, they were highly sensitive and they actually were more compassionate and caring than those who are attached. Greatest example is Buddha. If we see the Buddha as an embodiment of non-attachment, because Buddha's teaching is definitely based on that, then do you think Buddha is an insensitive person, or his sensitivity has made him non-attached, is still so compassionate? If I am attached, then what will happen? If I am attached, then I am attached in a very limited sense to one person, to one family, or to a small area. It means that I am being insensitive to the broader, from the broader perspective. Whereas Buddha is non-attached, but on a very broader sense, he is highly sensitive and he is still non-attached. Can take the example of some other people also. Maybe someone who is very, like one example, there can be some arguments about it. We don't go into it, but if we say, let's say Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa is someone who has spent all her life taking care for some deceased people. Actually, she is sensitive, and that non-attachment for her is not to limit it to one person, but her non-attachment is broader. That she can see the people as they are, being non-attached and without getting overwhelmed. The difficulty with those people who are extremely attached, that they might get overwhelmed because of the consequences of the attachment. Like a mother who is extremely protective to the child, highly attached to the child, will become actually a barrier in the child's growth. A non-attached mother can become, who is very sensitive, can help child grow into that. She is not non-caring. Our care, our sensitivity, all these things that we consider as a value in our cultures, actually they are the barriers. So this non-attachment has to be taken in a very, very broader perspective. And now if we see the Yoga Sutra, there are two more things that can be very helpful. One is in the niyamas, this idea of contentment, santosha, the second niyama, being content. And the another one is aparigraha, non-possession of the objects. These are very practical things that Patanjali has mentioned. Not directly in the sense that he's saying about Vairagya, but if we find ourselves difficult to practice Vairagya directly, then these two options are there. One is non-attachment or non-possession of the objects. Now understand a very interesting thing from the behavioral point of view. I remember that in my most of the student life or from the childhood, I always took bath in cold water for many years, actually 25 years. Warm water was a luxury, very seldom, and it will not make us feel very good. But the cold was very good. When I was in school, even in the morning, what we used to do is to go to take bath, and it was very cold, freezing cold in December, January. Maybe not like Switzerland, but still cold for us. So what I preferred, to jump, run and jump into the water, and then everything gets settled. And when we were studying yoga, Anil was with me. So mostly I will never wait for the whole hot water, because for hot water you have to wake up early, and then either you get the water from before everyone gets. So I prefer to sleep. I said, whatever the water I have, I will use it, and take the bucket and boom, and it's gone. Finished. There's no cold, nothing. Everything is great. What I'm trying to say is that it's a practice, and I can say I'm non-attached to the hot water. I'm not attached because I don't care hot water is there or not. I don't care about it. Now, situation changed after I went abroad and I stayed there for a few years. Then I found, because all the time hot water is there. So in this beginning, I did what I used to do, but then slowly started using the hot water. Now, in last 15 years, I cannot bear the cold water except Ganga water. I enjoyed it today. Now I am non-attached to cold water. Now, the point I want to make is that if my non-attachment is my convenience, if it is convenient for me to take the bath with the cold water, then I do it. But that's my convenience, because I don't want to wake up early, I don't want to queue, I don't want to go through the essence of. But now somehow the situation has changed in the last 15 years, that I don't have to struggle, I don't have to think, just go and switch on and the water is there. Even It's not yet cold, but I still prefer to mix at least some hot water. Now let's understand this. What I did earlier was I was non-attached to hot water. Now I am non-attached to the cold water. Does it have any meaning of non-attachment? Since my body is accustomed to take bath with a certain type of water, and I have developed a kind of resistance for cold or heat, does it make me a non-attached person? No. I am still attached to the hot water. The meaning, the point is that I go in either side of it. It doesn't make me non-attached person. What makes, and another point, important point, I say I don't care, whatever the water is available, I do. Take bath with it, it's fine. Is it real? That if I go in a hotel and there is no hot water, will I complain there? I'll make a whole issue there. There's no hot water and you charge this and blah, blah, blah. And then some people say that I use these things, but I'm non-attached. Please double check yourself. If you are really non-attached and you're saying, I'm just because, it's just there, so I use it, but I'm not attached. Means you may not have tested yourself in the real situations of life. It means you are fortunate enough that you have all that luxury. Now, this is still a part of practice. To really see or give yourself this practice of non-attachment. And how do you do that physically? And one very physical way of doing that is non-possession of the objects. Now I have the hot water machine and I have the hot water all the time. And if I say I am non-attached, it is incorrect. If I created all the comfort and luxury, and then I say, it is, see, I'm inside me, everything is not, I'm not attached, but I just take that. This can be a very misleading idea of non-attachment. Better check yourself. Are you really sure about it? And yes, it is possible to be sure that yes, it is there. But it cannot be guaranteed. Because as long as we have the possession of the things, possession of the objects, we have attachment. In a real sense, this should be true. And in no way somebody is saying that you should suffer. Not in this way anyone is saying you should torture yourself. Simply accept the fact that I like hot water and I need it. It's my necessity. Rather than defending oneself that I am non-attached. It's okay to use objects. But when it comes to the practice of reaching to some higher stages of Vairagya, then it cannot be only a mental thing. It has to be physical too, practically. If you are habitual to a certain type of life, And if you are thrown into a situation where such things are not there, then how nicely you adapt to it. That will be the parameter of non-attachment. Not because you come to India and in India hotels means not hotels. If you come to Tattva and then you say, oh, I lived in Tattva for 1 month and I always took cold water shower. You are not non-attached. It is nothing. It's your, means you have no choice. So the meaning is that this non-attachment has 2 aspects. One aspect is mental in it, but then another aspect is physical too. And that physical aspect is non-possession, aparigraha, of objects, of clothes, of all unnecessary things that we acquire and love to hold them. We are doing this Diwali cleaning. Every year we do this. So there are so many things that we have found in our home we have not used for 1 year. And I was saying that if I have not used it for 1 year, then what are you hoping for? When I will use it again? But attachment is there. Your Ursi has given me handmade plates. So we saw them yesterday. And then my wife said that, oh, she made it with so much love. We need to keep them. Yes, yes, of course. As a memory, we can keep them, but we have not used them. We are scared of using. It is so lovely that it will be broken. We are so attached to it. It's so funny. This is yesterday's discussion. What, and this is what is this for? I said this is for use. No, I don't want to use them. They are so lovely. They are made by hand. We are just trying to understand this idea, practically what happens to us. Practically, how are we seeing this non-attachment into our lives? Doesn't matter what we talk, but when we really, really look into this, we find it's very tricky. And it requires conscious effort in neutralizing our stubborn attachments. Our attachments are stubborn. Patanjali calls them chitta vikshepa. And they are manifested into the real physical life that we find hard to deal with. So it is not merely a concept. It's very much present into our behavior, into our life. And we all have to go through this experience of evaluating that what do I say about non-attachment and what is my actual behavior. So aparigraha, or the non-possession, is a very, very important step that Patanjali placed it into the yamas. And he has said that you need to physically practice that. Another very close associate of it is contentment, or being content, santosh. What is that? And if someone has this contentment, Does this person supposed to live in a, suppose somebody is born in poor conditions and not healthy conditions, then this person need to be content about it? In what context this contentment need to be practiced and understood? What is this santosh? So another practical experience that we have from our own lives is, there is another life lesson that I got. My father always believed that we don't need too many clothes. And when we were growing, we never invested much money there. And he said that if you want to, like, you should wear clean, but the number of clothes is useless. Having too many is not helpful in any way. So one sutra that they gave is that you may complain that I don't have this or I don't have that, but do you value enough what you already have? And if you can value what you already have, is santosh. Santosh does not mean that we don't have to act or we don't have to do something in order to get better in our lives from all point of views. But what is important is to, whatever I have, I give value to that. And it is internal. It's a very internal practice, which Patanjali has mentioned in the niyamas, the daily experience. It should be a daily experience. Niyama means something to do with daily behavior. Because I might overlook that. I may understand it, but I might overlook it. So all these ideas that Vairagya is practiced into our daily life. And it has to be taken in both perspectives. It has to be also taken into the physical practice perspective and as well a mental aspect. Because manipulation or convenience, these two things are very dangerous and they always find a place into our life somehow. If I say my attachment, then I will try to manipulate somewhere into it. And if I don't like something, then I will again manipulate it. Or I will find my convenience or inconvenience. So this whole idea is not about your convenience or not inconvenience. Yeah, same. Spiritual bypassing is the same. Manipulation and what is convenient for us, we take that path, means it is spiritual bypass. It's a new word. I didn't know it before, but I knew in a few months. But exactly the same way. Manipulation and convenience. For our convenience, we can manipulate anything. And that is one of the way people are also using the spiritual path. So the Vairagya, when it is established into the highest degree, that will be the ultimate goal of yoga, which is that you are same. Chittavritti Nirodha and Parvairagya, they are same things. There's no difference. But it has stages also, and these stages, wherever one person is there, need to check and recheck and remind oneself that if I am slipping into this side, and if you are still attached to it, then accept that fact that you are there, rather than again manipulating or for your convenience trying to change the facts. The next aspect that will be helpful to understand further is the Ishwar Pranidhan that Patanjali has mentioned in the Yoga Sutras as an alternative way. So practice and non-attachment is one way. Immediately after that, and the practice and non-attachment seems to be a very a lot of hard work is involved in it. A lot of doing is involved in it. And immediately after that, Patanjali says surrender. In English, this word surrender doesn't have a very good meaning, I guess. So please don't refer to the English meaning of it when we talk about surrender. I thought there could be some better word meaning of it, but that's not there at all. So if you get that meaning, and then if you say surrender to God, which seems to be a positive kind of feeling that they try to create, that you accept your defeat in front of the God, again doesn't serve the purpose. In what context Patanjali wants us to surrender? So let's reframe the whole context. There are many meanings that we have of surrender, not surrender, of Ishwar Pranidhana, or there are many Hindi words that I try to look. And then how do we practice it in daily life? So one of the meaning of Ishwar Pranidhan, so first of all, it's a Pranidhan means in intensity or thoroughly or completely surrender. We will see now. I'm hesitant to use the word surrender, but you understand in what context we are saying. It says total surrender of what? Now this is important. If you understand that, the problem is solved. The surrender of attitude of doership. If we can do that.
How about
what is that surrender?
How about non-resistance?
The surrender of doership, ownership in the action. Complete meaning is Ishwar, forget God right now. Only say Pranidhana means in totality, letting go of ownership of the action, being an instrument of the action becomes the idea of surrender in yoga in Patanjali's context. And then he says surrender to God. Then here again, what we understand from God in our cultural context cannot be applied in Patanjali's context. Because what we understand from the cultural context or from mythology cannot be applied here in this context, because in mythological sense, what is God, and in Patanjali's context, in a philosophical sense, what is God, are completely different things. The way Patanjali has brought God into the discussion, what are the implications of that, is also very important to understand, because everything else Patanjali has accepted from Sankhya philosophy, and Sankhya philosophy does not talk anything about God. And that's the only addition that Patanjali has done in the Yoga Sutra, that he has added the idea of God. And he has used a special phrase for it. It is called Ishwara. And not only Ishwara, but he says Purush Vishesh Ishwara. Means a special Purusha is God. Now, because Patanjali always defines what he has spoken, so we need to look of the meaning of God in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra only. So in 24th Sutra, first chapter, that meaning of God is explained. Who is that? So first of all, it's very clear from the description of Patanjali. He say Purusha Vishesha Ishwara, that it is not a personality, it is not a person, it is not an entity, it is not omnipotent. The Patanjali's God is not omnipotent. Patanjali's God is a mathematical concept like zero in mathematics. Like zero in mathematics is nothing. In the same way, in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, the God is also like that. But very, very important to progress on this path of practice, because it is linked with the attitude of doership, I-ness, or attitude of ownership. So here when Patanjali is saying Ishwar Pranidhana, means surrender to God, this meaning is not identical to other meanings that we have from the mythological point of view. Now, keeping this discussion aside here, I will try to give you a few words, few more ideas in order to understand this whole idea of that in practical sense. We use, even we say Namana or Namaskar. Or in India, people have this habit. It's a cultural thing again, but if we look at the meaning into it, it's very pure. When we meet elders, we touch the feet of the elders. When we say Namaste to someone and when we bow our head down, then how it is functioning inside us. First of all, you cannot bow down to anyone. You only bow down to those whom you respect. It is out of, in both ways it works. First of all, if you do not have that feeling inside of surrendering, here the meaning of surrender is to be understood that you are, when you meet someone and this person is having a lot of respect in your heart, then you bow yourself down to this person. Not in any sense that you are giving up or you are defeated, but what is that part of us which is removed from us when we bow down to someone? And that is ego. As long as this idea of ownership or idea of being something, somebody is existing, it's not possible to go down. The another meaning, the another word, it is namana, na, ma, na. Man means mind. When you go to someone and you drop your mind outside, then you can surrender. As long as the mind is functional, the surrender is not possible in this context. Apart from that, another aspect of surrender will come when we have this idea of total acceptance. When we develop that idea of acceptance, then only this surrender is possible. There are many prerequisites. So in verse number, Sutra number 20 in the Yoga Sutra, Patanjali uses a special word which is called Shraddha. Now in English, the meaning of Shraddha is also not close to what actually we mean by that. Shraddha, or the faith, that Patanjali described as a prerequisite to the higher stages of yoga. That if you want to comprehend the higher aspects of samadhi and pragya, then you should have Shraddha. Shraddha means faith. Now, what is this faith? And there is a very thin line between faith and blind faith. But there is a process. If you have gone through that process, it can be understood. The process from blind faith to the faith is, let's say, it begins from the seeing things. Let's say I have pen, suppose pen. And this pen, I don't have it right now. I just have the cap. Okay. So you just assume I have pen. Okay, you have the pen. Let's understand this way. When you saw pen, you see it. Oh, that this is pen. And you are told this is pen. You write with it. And then you observe like a child. When a child will hold the pen, will do many different things. Sometimes this child will write on the wall. They will use it just to rub it on the ground. What are they doing? You took the pen and then this child is doing whatever comes to him. He can throw it. He can poke into somebody's eyes. If that's too cruel, then can be on your face like that. Because you just see the pen and just do this. And then the child observes. There is observation. Oh, this pen is held like that, and this side of the pen and this the front side is, and there is something in it, and it has color also. Oh, and then they use it on the paper. Okay, now you use it on the paper, and then you see this line, and then you just do this all the way and making this paper completely rubbish, completely using this pen in any way. Okay, then you feel that when I move this pen in this way, then it makes something, some characters. And if you have this pen, if it is pencil, then you can use it for drawing. then you start to go even deeper into it. And then you take this pen and you know it. Okay, it has brought an understanding about pen, that this pen is that object through which I can write things, I can draw something. And then you have this trust that I have pen. And I want, then it's okay. I want to use it, I use it. I don't want to use it, it's just there. It's there in my somewhere, pen stand or where. Can you see this whole process? There is a process. Now you have this trust from seeing things to the trust. There is a journey. There is a process. And you have brushed yourself through all the way from this. And then if you take it from the spiritual point of view, when you have observed everything so precisely, with all your experiences, feeling it, then you develop faith, Shraddha. And then in this faith, there is no use of any brain. When you have the faith, you just have it. It does not mean that this faith has just come by like that. And that is possible for some people. When your parents told that this is Jesus and this is this God and he does it like this, and you have completely, without undergoing this whole process, you just accepted that this is the God and he said so and so things, and that's all. And you say, I have faith in this God or this religion or this person, whatever. Is it faith or is it blind faith? If when Patanjali is talking about this faith, and he says that faith is a prerequisite for the higher stages of the practice of what he's trying to say. He's saying that you just accept what I'm saying and never question it. No. He's saying it is prerequisite, no doubt. But before that, there is a whole process that you already have gone through. So in a spiritual context, when they say faith, means then there is no question. It is called samarpan. It is called surrender. It is called total acceptance. But there is a process involved in it. We should not forget it. It can be either way. Suppose, for example, this is a story of Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda was highly, a very young person who was always arguing, and he was loving this game of argument with all the people around him. And he will always win that argument. So much doing is involved, so much ego is involved. And when he met Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa and he asked him, have you seen God? And with that confidence, he said, yes. Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it now? He got scared. Swami Vivekananda got scared because he never met anyone. Earlier, he met all those people who will argue and he will win those arguments, but he took away his question. He said, do you want to see him now? And then the later stories, whatever, he showed him and he surrendered and everything. But the point is that this Shraddha or this faith that Patanjali is referring to is not something which has just developed in a fraction of a second. There is a flow, there is a process, and you have done all your exercise of the mind, your ego. Then only the real faith will awake. So when Patanjali is talking about the surrender to God, and because before that in 20th Sutra he said faith, people can completely misinterpret the whole idea of Patanjali. That Patanjali is a theist and he is asking for you to accept some God or some authority and blah blah. But we forget this whole process. So in this process, when things will go, then the real surrender will awake. Please understand, the faith and Ishwar Pranayama, they are very much linked with each other. Should not be understood in a negative sense. Also need to be seen in the yogic Patanjali sense, that when Patanjali is saying surrender yourself, what actually he meant by that? Did Patanjali ask you to surrender to some higher power? No. You say there is higher power, it may be there. Patanjali doesn't care about it. What he cares? He cares that one ultimately does all the hard work. When he is saying, let go of your ownership into the action, he is not saying don't do any action. When people say surrender to God, does not mean you are free not to do anything. It simply means that with intensity you have done all the actions and you have already refined in this process. And if you are refined in this process, you will come to realize that you are no one into this action. Whatever is happening is just happening and you are an instrument. And that's your faith, where you have surrendered your attitude of doership completely, totally. And that's what the surrender to God means. Ishwara Pranidhana. To whom? Not to a very powerful God. Because Patanjali is this intelligence, that how he has put the God in the Yoga Sutra, nobody is able to imagine a picture of God of Patanjali. We have all kinds of God in India. It's a different thing. Why there are so many gods? Where you are only fed up with one. Why we need this many? You are only haunted by one so much. Then what if you had this many gods? There will be so much confusion. So here This is not the question. How many gods? It is, in Patanjali's sense, it is about action. There's one part of us, and that's where practice is, that's where the Vairagya is, and so much action is involved. And only those who have performed the action has capacity to let go of the ownership of the action. Because if you have not performed an action, then how will you give up the ownership? So it is not for the escapists that Patanjali's God will be helpful. And because the way Patanjali described, no one can make up a picture of the God according to Patanjali. Because the description is so non-pictorial, you cannot make a picture of it. We have all kinds of God, all beautiful. All gods in India are very handsome, beautiful, and very, very nicely toned, and so young. We don't have too many old gods in India. They're all young, 16 always. So when we picturize them very well. So what was the difficulty in picturizing Patanjali's God? Why we could not do it? We could not do it because he did not leave any scope for it. He didn't leave any possibility for us that we go into any nonsense and make something funny out of our imagination. And one more thing that he did, very clever thing, that he made his God completely powerless. So one thing, he did not explain the way that you can make a picture or a temple or any physical manifestation of it. Another thing, he made him powerless. He said, you are not omnipotent. And it is not he or she also. He says spatial Purusha. There is no he or she involved in it. People mistakenly say Purusha is male and Prakriti is female. It's not actually the way it is intended. And it is a spatial Purusha. What is God according to Patanjali? A spatial Purusha who is untouched, aparamrasta, untouched of all the miseries, all the karmas, all the fruits of the karmas, and the storehouse of the karma. He made us, means the concept of Purusha that Patanjali gave, he said someone, a special Purusha, means not the normal Purushas that they are going through the karmas and actions and storehouse of the action. We are in that cycle of misery. A special Purusha who is completely untouched of any miseries, means he has no life. He doesn't come into a physical form. He is having no chitta. He has no mind. He has no senses, and he has no actions. If he has no actions, then there are no fruits of the actions. If there are no fruits of the action, there is no storehouse of the action. And if it is all not there, then there is no life. Means he made a Purusha, a spatial entity, in order to remind us a higher possibility. That there is no physically God possible, and he is completely powerless. He cannot help you in anything. If you pray to your Patanjali's God, say that I am going to launch this course, please Patanjali God help me to have many students online. He will not help. He didn't help me. If he is there, then he's just there, free from everything, completely untouched from every multiplication of the life processes. That entity is that possibility that he's saying that if you want, then the miseries, the kleshas, the karmas, the storehouse of the karmas, get rid of everything. And you realize yourself. And in this whole process, since there is a lot of hard work involved, then very intelligently Patanjali has to come up with something that people might get trapped into. So he repeated this surrender to God 3 times in the Yoga Sutras, which is against the writing of the Sutra. In Sutras, repetitions are not allowed. But he violated this law, this rule of writing Sutra by repeating 3 times something. So one is 123, another was in the Kriya Yoga in the 2nd chapter, and then Niyamas in the Ashtanga Yoga. So at 3 places, it comes into different contexts, and the ultimate meaning of it is to surrender, to let go of attitude of ownership and doership into our actions. And if we can do that, then we are in this process of surrendering. Faith, but all these surrender and faith will not come by merely thinking about it or just accepting it in some blind manner, but it will come with all the process you go through. So the practice will enable us to reach to some understanding ultimately that I am the instrument, not the doer. And that will be the meaning of surrender to God here. In surrender the ego, surrender the attitude of doership. In practical sense, if we find it difficult to conceptualize, we can practice one thing, that is bowing down in front of the people you think you can bow down, and even meeting friends while we are saying hi, hello, namaste, good morning, good afternoon. We can really do this, remembering the essence of it and surrendering the I-ness at that time. That is namaste or naman or whatever your culturally approved ways of respect, showing respect. It's not just for the show, but action is involved. So initially, there's a lot of action in it also. Because a part of you will say no. A part of you will judge the other person. One more thing, which is sometimes raised this question, it's quite confusing. And also, let's clarify that. Because when we look at the people, we judge them and we think that this person should be perfect in all aspects. And if this person is perfect, when you have judged that, then I will surrender. It's a really difficult process, complicated. It says that in this way, it really does not matter to whom you are surrendering. Means whether this person has really reached to the state of Atma Sakshatkar or self-realization or not. So it does not matter that. What matters is that your faith. So your faith does wonders, not what other person is capable of doing or not. I think we have finished the time. So anyway, the message is clear that practice, doing, and then going beyond doing, which cannot happen without doing. So the surrender is also like that. For some people, it's much natural, very easy, but not being blind in this whole process. Then you have the pain and you don't even know you have the pain. Then what's the use of it? So you have the pain and you know what to do with it, all the process. You applied your brain, your head, your thinking. It's done. When it's done, there is faith. And there is no brain. So there are two ways. You do many things, and one day you have that possibility that you just go down, or you bow down and then you get it. So it depends on what kind of path you are on. And it's much difficult with your own family. For others, it's easy. You did bow down in India with us many times, right? So this is how the whole process of Patanjali is giving us many different approaches, many different ways to raise our consciousness in that sense that we can realize our potential. Okay, thank you very much. I think it is enough for today.